You get the role of Sulu on the series, and were there others up for the part, or was it just you?
I got a call from my agent one day saying that there's an interview with a man named Gene Roddenberry, whom I didn't know from Adam at that time. The thing that perked my ears up was he said that it's for a running part in a pilot film with a good chance for becoming a series. Continuity, regularity of work, continuous employment.
Yeah.
That's what intrigued me. Went to the interview, met Gene Roddenberry, had a wonderful conversation, but walked out of there, frankly, thinking that I didn't get the part, that I'm not the right person that he was looking for, because we talked about everything under the sun, except about me in relationship to the project. Generally, they ask, what had you done before, where did you study, what director did you work with, that sort of thing. Gene Roddenberry wasn't that way at all. We talked about current events, some of the movies that I had enjoyed, and so I thought this was his very gentlemanly way of saying thank you, but no thank you. But rather than saying that, he was making social conversation and then easing me out. So I got on the phone after I walked out of there and said to my agent, he's a wonderful man. I really enjoy the conversation, but I don't think I'm going to be cast. And he said, why is that? And I explained it to him. 3 days later, my agent called again and said, George, how wrong you are. You're cast. You're going to play this character named Sulu. And that set me to thinking. I think Gene interviews everyone that way. He just assumes, or he knows in advance that the people that he's going to be interviewing are competent actors, that he can count on them on the people that he's interviewing to be able to deliver a performance. The reason he interviews like that is he wants to find out something about what makes us tick. What are the things that he's interested in? What are the areas that personally engage him? What are his opinions on politics or on this and that? What's the person behind the professional actor?
And looking for a person perhaps to play that warm human person that everybody in Star Trek is all the cast members have come to be in the series.
He's looking for someone beyond just professional competence, someone who brings a human being of varied interests or experiences or areas that engage him, to the character. So I think that's why he interviewed in the way he did.
Okay. Did you have any influence on the development of the character Sulu in the series and films?
Yeah, somewhat. They have what's called a Bible, where all of the data, the parameters, the shape, the values of the show are set. What the ship looks like, what the costumes look like, the uniforms, and why certain colors, and so forth. And the characters are all sketched out. Well, others more in detail. Obviously, that's right. Spock and Kirk and the leads are obviously more fleshed out. Other characters are given their rough outline, but not given details. So to that extent, you can't change that. What we do is then, within the frameworks, works that have been set for us, we add details. For example, in one episode called Naked Time, where I do a little fencing, initially the character was wielding a samurai sword. That was interesting and certainly ethnically consistent. But, we're talking about the 23rd century. Yeah. These people, are 300 years ahead of us. Now, I'm a third-generation Japanese American. I didn't play samurai when I was a kid. I played cops and robber and cowboys and Indians. And one of the things that I particularly enjoyed was swashbuckler movies, Burt Lancaster, Earl Flynn movies. And I remember when I saw The Adventures of Robin Hood with Earl Flynn, I was totally swept away by that. Came home, had my mother make a Robin Hood costume for me, and also other costumes, and organized neighborhood kids. Martha Gonzalez was my maid Marion, and skinny, tall, blonde Gary McGarry was my Friar Tuck. Friar Tuck is short and chubby, and with a bald pate, and black hair fringing, his head. But Gary was, because he was my best friend. And I, of course, Japanese-American me was Robin Hood, because my mother made the costume and my backyard was Sherwood Forest. And my best friend, Gary McGarry, was Friar Tuck, despite the fact that he was twice as tall as I was and half as thin as I was. But, he was my Friar Tuck. And so I suggested to the writer, this character Sulu is 3 centuries ahead of us. So by that time, they wouldn't be, certainly Sulu is proud of his ethnic heritage, but he also considers his cultural heritage to be the heritage of humankind. That he relates just as much to European history or African history or Latin American history as he would to Asian history, because that he considers that his legacy. And so wouldn't it be much more interesting and more consistent with the science fiction idea if this obvious Asian character were to brandish a French fencing foil and fancy himself D'Artagnan? I said, that's a great idea. So you have these opportunities to kind of add certain uniquenesses, maybe certain eccentricities to the character. And I consider Sulu, although he's seen primarily as a very, very good professional, an outstanding professional, he is also an eccentric as well, with a great sense of swashbuckle.
What about his interest in biology? Is that your idea, or was that somebody else's idea and you developed it? Or?
That was already there in the Bible. And I can't help but think that it's also somewhat ethnically consistent. Asians are seen as good scientists, but beyond that, we've heard of the Japanese gardener. But certainly as a member of Starfleet, exploring strange new worlds, it would be perfectly consistent with this character to have this curiosity about vegetable life forms on other planets, because an insatiable curiosity is very much a part of Sulu's character.
Do you see any differences between his character in the series and his character in the film?
He's older. And he's now a commander, although he still sits at the helm and still pushes those buttons and says, "Aye, aye, sir, warp 3." So although the ranks have changed, it seems the job description really has not.
So.
It's Circle Limit.